fine. Well, I don't know any of you guys out here have ever been divorced and told you bear it. It's not a bad thing. It's a free ticket to paradise, you know?
At 6'7", built like a wall with a microphone, Tyrus is known on Fox News for his larger-than-life presence, sharp takes, and that unmistakable wrestling edge. But at the 2024 Patriot Awards, the so-called monster stepped onto the red carpet with his elegant wife, Ingrid Rinck, and the internet froze.
I was married. That was different. The 10-year-old's different, and it was not a fun experience for me, and I could not perform under that kind of pressure, long story short. So I did not participate, and she did, and they said that she was fine, so obviously it was me.
Photos from Fox Nation's big night lit up timelines. The visual contrast stunned fans. Have you ever seen a couple that made you do a double take? But what if this rare appearance traces back to a life-and-death crisis? The visual mismatch. Why the internet broke. The cameras at the Fox Nation Patriot Awards were supposed to be on the winners, but all eyes were on the 6'7" giant and the woman who barely reached his shoulder. Because the second Tyrus hit that carpet in December 2024, the internet did what it always does when reality looks edited. It paused, it zoomed, it replayed. The photos show the full contrast: Tyrus, the Fox News, and Gutfeld, regular with the pro wrestler frame, standing like a human skyscraper in a tailored suit, and beside him, Ingrid Rinck, polished, poised, and calm, like she already knows the room belongs to her. And here's the funny part. This wasn't a scandal moment. It was a wait, that's his wife moment. That's why fans were stunned. Not because love is shocking, but because the visual story didn't match the version of him people had filed away in their heads. On TV, Tyrus from Fox News reads like a loud personality with a big laugh and bigger opinions. On that red carpet, he read like a surprisingly classic husband. The kind who looks like he's about to open a car door for you, then casually lifts the whole car if the door sticks. The shock factor wasn't just height, it was the vibe. People expected wrestler energy. They got grown man stability. Ingrid's presence made that even louder because she didn't show up playing sidekick. She showed up as her own headline. And that's where the valet versus CEO archetype kicks in. You know the trope. The massive guy looks like security, and the smaller, elegant partner looks like the person signing the checks. That's exactly what the camera accidentally captured. So why did fans call her the famous wife? Because she's not famous for being married. She's famous for building. Ingrid Rinck has her own lane as a fitness and nutrition entrepreneur. And mainstream profiles have described her as the founder behind a meal business that became a real brand, not a hobby project. So when viewers saw her next to Tyrus, the confusion wasn't, who is she? It was, how did I not know he lives a whole different life off camera? And it didn't help that the setting itself was a spark. The Patriot Awards is already designed to feel cinematic. Lights, speeches, applause, big emotions. Put that environment together with a couple that looks like a before and after contrast photo, and you get instant viral bait. Even the location and date got repeated like coordinates because people were trying to place the moment in their heads. December 5th, 2024, the Till Center in New York, and suddenly, the most talked about thing wasn't even the trophy. Now let me ask you something. If you saw Tyrus walking down the street, would you ever guess he's a softie for his family? Because the pictures didn't show TV Tyrus. They showed Dad Tyrus. And that hits different. It's like discovering the bouncer at your local club, goes home to tend tomatoes, read bedtime stories, and argue about what color to paint the living room. Did you expect a pro wrestler turned Fox News personality to be a farm-living husband type? Or did this couple completely flip your expectations? But this was never just a fashion moment. It was a public clue. Because if you think Ingrid is just another celebrity wife next to a famous man, you're about to see why she's actually the one running the multi-million-dollar show, and why the real story starts when health, survival, and family decisions collide behind closed doors. The diminutive dynamo. Who is Ingrid Rinck? She didn't marry into fame. She built an empire with $50 and a desperate need to save her son. And this is where the famous wife label finally makes sense, because Ingrid Rinck is not standing next to Tyrus like a +1. She's standing next to him like the person who knows how to rebuild a life from the studs, then decorate it, then turn it into a business you can ship nationwide. The mainstream usually frames her as Tyrus's wife, because that's the easiest headline. But the real headline is that she was already in survival mode years before most people even learned her name. Back in 2014, her world got hit with the kind of news that doesn't care about your plans, your schedule, or your confidence. Ingrid has described her son being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And she didn't treat it like a tragedy you just cry through. She treated it like a problem you study until you can beat it. She threw herself into nutrition research, trying to understand food in a way that could actually support her child's health and daily life. That's the how behind everything that came next, because this business wasn't born from a trendy idea. It was born from fear and love. And she wasn't doing this from some fancy boardroom. One profile describes her as being near rock bottom, pregnant, overweight, in a custody battle, and even surviving on food stamps when that diagnosis hit. That matters, because it explains why her success story feels so different. This wasn't a glow-up story that started with confidence. It started with pressure. Then comes the part that makes people sit up straight. A business publication write-up about her recognition in New Orleans says she created sensible meals with the last $50 she had in her bank account, and that the company later grew into a 9-figure business employing more than 1,200 people. Read that again slowly, because it sounds like a movie pitch, but it's printed like a receipt. Last $50. Then a workforce in the thousands. That's not luck. That's a machine she built. So what exactly is Sensible Meals? It's meal prep designed to make weight loss and healthier eating less complicated. Portion-controlled, prepared meals, built around consistency instead of chaos. A New Orleans magazine-sponsored profile says she founded it in 2014 after her son's diagnosis, and claims it grew quickly into what they describe as the largest meal prep company in the country, with an 8-figure business and a workforce made almost entirely of women. Another New Orleans-based business site similarly describes it as the largest meal prep company in the country, and says it grew from a one-kitchen operation into a much larger operation with a big staff. That's why people call her a mogul, because the scale is the story. Now let's talk about the part that makes her diminutive dynamo title feel earned. Ingrid has spoken publicly about major weight loss, with one local profile saying she lost 100 pounds while building the business. She has also publicly claimed a higher number in her own posts, saying she lost 150 pounds naturally through diet and exercise. Either way, the point isn't the exact headline number. The point is that she didn't sell a transformation she never lived. She became the proof before she became the brand. And notice how this flips the entire red carpet visual mismatch you saw in Chapter 1. Tyrus looks like a storm cloud. Ingrid looks like the calm. But behind the scenes, Ingrid is the builder, the operator, the person who understands systems, discipline, and what it costs to keep a family standing when life tries to knock it over. So when fans saw her next to Tyrus from Fox News, they weren't just seeing a couple. They were seeing two completely different kinds of strength sharing the same frame. Could you start a business with just $50 in your pocket? Not as a cute challenge, but because you had no other choice? And when you hear a mother turned a family health crisis into a nationwide success story, does it change how you see the phrase self-made? Because this is the hidden truth people skip. Ingrid didn't build a brand to look impressive. She built it to survive, and survival doesn't care about aesthetics. Now here's where the story tightens into something even bigger than business. Ingrid wasn't just saving herself and her son. She was about to take on her biggest challenge yet, saving Tyrus. The 100-pound overhaul, the health crisis fans missed. Tyrus was at a breaking point. The wrestling-sized frame that made him a legend was starting to feel like a prison. Because here's the part fans miss when they only see Tyrus from Fox News cracking jokes on Gutfeld, or towering over everyone in a suit. That size comes with a price. A big body can be a brand, sure, but it can also become a warning light you keep ignoring because life is loud and you're busy and, honestly, you're used to powering through. And behind the scenes, Ingrid wasn't just his wife. She was his reset button. If you want the cleanest receipt, it's hiding in plain sight on social media. Ingrid has shared that Tyrus dropped serious weight using her meal approach, including a post that talks about him losing 45 pounds in 7 weeks, and even mentions that he lost over 100 pounds on their meals in a previous stretch. That's not a tiny new year, new me change. That's the kind of overhaul you feel in your knees, your breathing, your sleep, and the way your body stops fighting you every morning. Now let's make this real. When someone is known for being huge, people assume they're invincible. But health doesn't care how famous you are or how tough you look on camera. The biggest guys are sometimes the most fragile in the quiet moments because they've spent years being the strong ones. And this is where Ingrid's story from the previous chapters loops back like a perfect plot twist. She didn't build her life around vibes. She built it around outcomes. Her whole world became discipline, nutrition, and consistency because of her son's diagnosis and her own transformation journey. So when Tyrus needed structure, she didn't give him a motivational quote. She gave him a system. That's why his praise for her hits harder than any red carpet photo. In one Instagram post, Tyrus looks back on their relationship and calls the transformation unbelievable, making it clear he's not just talking about her. He's talking about what happened to their lives once she stepped into that role of builder and protector. And according to biographical reporting, the two were private for years, even as people spotted them together, until Tyrus addressed the marriage publicly around 2020. Which tells you this wasn't a look at us relationship. It was a handle business quietly relationship. So when fans say, wait, he's a softie? It's not just about family photos. It's about the reality that a man built like a tank still needs someone who will look him dead in the eye and say, I want you here for the long run. Have you ever had a partner who pushed you to be your best self, even when you didn't feel like it? And be honest, when you hear over 100 pounds, what hits you harder? That physical transformation or the fact he publicly credits the woman beside him for making longevity possible? Because once the health crisis is handled, the whole couple's story changes. It stops being giant man with elegant wife and becomes two people who saved each other in different ways. And with their health in check, they decided to make it official. But the wedding wasn't exactly what you'd expect from a Fox News star. The 2024 marriage, a decade in the making. It took 10 years and a proposal on Gutfeld to finally get to the I do. Because after you watch a couple survive the hard parts, the timeline starts to feel less like gossip and more like proof. That's the piece people missed while they were busy replaying the red carpet clips and arguing about the height difference. This wasn't some overnight celebrity couple reveal. This was a slow-burning relationship that had already been in motion for years before the internet even noticed. Back up for a second. By the time most viewers started typing Tyrus wife into YouTube search, Ingrid was already deep in her own world, building her business and raising her son. And Tyrus was already living that double life the cameras don't show. The loud, funny Fox News personality on one side and the private family man on the other. So when he popped the question in April 2020, it didn't feel like a publicity stunt. It felt like a man finally letting the public catch up to the life he'd been protecting. And yes, the way it happened is part of why fans still talk about it. It wasn't some hidden beach proposal with a drone shot and a violin soundtrack. It was on air, in front of a real audience, with real reactions, on a show where people came for jokes and left feeling like they just witnessed a family moment. That's why the Gutfeld. The crowd reacted like they were in on it, because for a second the studio stopped being a set and started feeling like a living room. Now here's the part that's actually kind of retro in the best way. They didn't rush to the wedding just because the engagement happened. They waited. Years. And in celebrity land, that's basically a lifetime. People are used to quick engagements, quick weddings, quick breakups, and then a press release that starts with, "We remain friends." But this couple moved like they had something to protect. And after the health crisis you heard about in the previous chapter, that kind of patience starts to make sense. When you fought for longevity, you stop making decisions for applause. There's also a reason the timeline confused people online. Around 2020, Tyrus publicly referred to Ingrid as his wife, which made some viewers assume they were already married, while other reports point to a January 2024 wedding as the official moment. That mix-up is exactly what happens when a couple is private on purpose. They don't spoon-feed the internet. They let the internet guess. And guess what? The internet always does. So when January 2024 arrived and the marriage became the headline, it didn't land like a sudden twist. It landed like the final stamp on a story that had been building for a decade. The engagement wasn't the beginning. It was a checkpoint. The wedding wasn't the big reveal. It was the calm confirmation that the relationship was real the whole time. Let me ask you this. Is a 4-year engagement too long? Or is it the secret sauce for a marriage that actually lasts? And do you think the Gutfeld audience felt like they were part of the family, even if just for one night? Because if this relationship has a pattern, it's this. They only go public when it means something. And now that they've got the fame, the fortune, and the official husband and wife title locked in, the next question is the one that really throws people. Why are they spending weekends cleaning out stalls on a New Jersey farm? The Tyrus-Zilla sanctuary. So why are they spending their weekends cleaning out stalls on a New Jersey farm? Because once you zoom out, you realize the Fox News giant thing is only his public costume. Off camera, the man people expect to see arguing politics or body slamming someone through a table is out here doing the least glamorous work imaginable. The kind of work that smells like hay, mud, and responsibility. And this is where the story gets fun. Because the Tyrus you think you know doesn't live in Manhattan. He lives in a sanctuary. Not a spa sanctuary. Not a celebrity wellness retreat. I'm talking about a real-life, boots-on, gate-latching, did you close the feed bin? Sanctuary. Picture this. A 6-foot 7-inch human skyscraper stepping into a pasture like he's entering a different universe. The cameras trained him to be sharp, loud, and unbothered. The farm trains you to be patient, quiet, and extremely bothered by animals that do not respect your schedule. And the visual mismatch comes back again, just in a new setting. On the red carpet, people stared because Ingrid looked like an elegant powerhouse beside a mountain. On the farm, it's even funnier because now the mountain is trying to keep eye contact with an alpaca that has decided it's the manager. And if you've ever met an emu, you already know they carry themselves like they pay rent. This is the part fans never expect, especially the ones who only know him as Tyrus from Fox News or the guy from Gutfeld, with the big presence and bigger laugh. Because the secret flex isn't the tux, it's the ordinary life they protect. A blended family, a home base, animals that need feeding, whether you had a good day or a terrible one, and kids who do not care how famous you are when it's homework time. And it makes sense when you remember how their relationship has always moved. Ingrid built her world around discipline, routine, and health. That's her lane. Tyrus came from a world where your body is your tool until it starts turning on you. So the farm becomes this weird middle ground where both of them win. It's physical, it's real, and it's impossible to fake for social media for very long. Here's the question. If you saw Tyrus in rubber boots carrying feed instead of wearing a suit under studio lights, would you even recognize him? And another one. Which version feels more real to you, the TV persona or the farmhand reality? Because one of them is built for ratings, the other is built for peace. Now, I'm not saying they're out here playing Little House on the Prairie for attention. If anything, the vibe is the opposite. This looks like the kind of life you build when you're tired of being a headline. When you've got the fame and the money, but what you actually want is quiet, structure, and a place where the only thing trending is whether the animals escaped again. But managing 5 kids, a business empire, and a mini farm zoo is already a lot. So how do they deal with the constant clickbait rumors that try to twist their marriage into a scandal? The stunned truth, debunking the 2026 frenzy. Every few months, a new video claims cameras caught them, but the truth is, they've been hiding in plain sight all along. And this is how we separate the real, stunned truth from the recycled thumbnails. Because if you've been on YouTube anytime in 2026, you've seen the pattern. A dramatic title pops up, Tyrus spotted with his wife. Secret life exposed. Fox News star caught off guard. And then you click, and it's the same handful of clips and photos again. Same event, same angles, same red carpet moment stretched like chewing gum until it loses flavor. That's why the Patriot Awards footage keeps getting recycled. It's clean, it's glossy, and it gives creators what they want. A ready-made shock frame. You have Tyrus, the towering Fox News personality, in a suit. You have Ingrid, poised and calm, looking like she belongs in a boardroom and a gala at the same time. And the internet loves one thing more than facts: contrast. But here's the honest truth. Fans are not stunned by a scandal. They're stunned by the consistency. Because once you actually follow the timeline, there's no caught moment at all. There's no secret girlfriend reveal. There's no messy story hiding behind the curtain. What's actually happening is way more rare in celebrity culture. They've been together for around a decade, they got engaged publicly back in 2020, and they didn't rush the marriage like it was a PR sprint. They took their time and eventually made it official in 2024. That is not chaos. That is commitment moving at adult speed. And I think that's what triggers the internet. Not anger, not outrage, but disbelief. People are trained to expect famous couples to be like microwave popcorn. Hot, fast, loud, then gone. But this relationship has been slow cooked. Private for long stretches, public only when it mattered, and steady even when the rumor machine tried to turn every sighting into a breaking news moment. Now let's talk about why creators keep pushing the stunned angle in 2026. It's not because something new happened. It's because normal doesn't trend. A stable marriage doesn't create a cliffhanger. A couple that goes home to kids and animals doesn't fit the usual celebrity script. So the content mills do what they always do. They slap a fresh date on an old moment and pretend it's new. And that's the real, hidden truth the mainstream skips. The shock isn't what they did. It's what they didn't do. They didn't split for attention. They didn't feed every detail to the internet. They didn't turn their relationship into a weekly storyline. Instead, Ingrid was building a business and a health system. Tyrus was rebuilding his body and protecting his home life. So when people finally saw them together clearly, it felt like a plot twist. But it wasn't a twist. It was just the first time the camera zoomed out far enough. Let me ask you something. Why do you think the media is so obsessed with seeing them together? Is it the height difference? The tough guy with a soft side contrast? Or is it because we're so used to public mess that private stability looks suspicious? And here's another one. Do you prefer TV Tyrus or Family Man Tyrus? The guy who brings heat on screen? Or the guy who quietly shows up at home and stays consistent? Because if you strip away the clickbait noise, what's left is actually the most interesting part. This isn't a gotcha story. It's a transformation story. Two people who changed their lives, changed each other's habits, and built something that lasts longer than a trending clip. So what is the ultimate legacy of this transformation duo? It's bigger than a meal prep company. The Murdoch Empire, a legacy of transformation. They didn't just build a life together. They built a blueprint for anyone who thinks it's too late to change. Because when you strip away the headlines and the recycled stunned clips, what's left isn't scandal. It's a system, and the system is simple enough to say out loud, but hard enough to actually live. Ingrid builds structure, and Tyrus gives it a megaphone. That's the real power dynamic, and it's the part most people completely miss. Ingrid Rinck is not famous because of him. The reporting around her story paints her as a self-made entrepreneur who turned a personal crisis into a mission, building a business around nutrition and discipline after her son's type 1 diabetes diagnosis, and after transforming her own health with a major weight loss journey. And Tyrus, for all the jokes and the on-screen confidence, is the living proof that her approach isn't just marketing. You don't need to know every private detail to see the pattern. When a man known for size and toughness starts publicly crediting his partner for changing his life, that's not a random compliment. That's a man admitting his before had an expiration date. So when people say fans are stunned, I think they're reacting to something deeper than the height difference. They're reacting to the fact that this couple doesn't fit the usual celebrity math. It's not 1 star plus 1 accessory. It's more like 1 builder plus 1 broadcaster. Ingrid moves like an operator. Tyrus moves like a headline. And together they create this strange kind of modern blueprint. A wellness story packaged inside a pop culture story. Here's the hidden truth. The Murdoch world connection that everyone whispers about isn't the point. The point is the engine. The engine is that they've built a life where transformation isn't a one-time event. It's a daily habit. And that's why the farm storyline matters too, because it supports the same theme. A farm is routine. Animals don't care about your excuses. Kids don't care about your trending page. Your body doesn't care about your followers. You either show up or you don't. That's why this transformation power duo idea lands. Not because it sounds inspirational, but because it's practical. Ingrid's work is about systems people can copy. Meal prep, consistency, accountability, and a plan that doesn't collapse when motivation disappears. And Tyrus adds the part that's even rarer, visibility. He brings it into a space where people don't always expect wellness talk to land, because the audience came for politics, jokes, and debate. So when a guy like him changes, it hits different. It tells viewers, if he can do it, you can do it too, without sounding like a motivational poster. Let me ask you this. Who in your life is your Ingrid? The person who doesn't just hype you up, but actually helps you build a routine you can survive on a bad day. And if Tyrus can change his life at his size and in midlife, what's stopping you from making one small change that your future self will thank you for? Because this is the real legacy of their story. Not the red carpet, not the viral clips, not the stunned headlines. It's that they quietly proved something most people want to believe but don't believe enough to try. It's not too late. Not to start over. Not to rebuild your health. Not to fix your habits. Not to choose a slower, better life, even when the world is begging you to live fast and loud. Tyrus and Ingrid are proof that you can be a powerhouse on camera and a protector at home, then still clock in for farm chores. That's the retro code. Build loud in public, live solid in private. Were you more stunned by the farm life or the weight loss? Would you trust a partner who pushes you this hard? Smash, like, subscribe to our channel, and comment, is Ingrid Rinck the MVP of the Murdoch family?